Hello everyone, Jeff with a Green Review. Last night we had an ice storm. Actually, it's still going on. We're still getting rain at this moment and it's still freezing and dripping on everything. A couple of different causes for ice storms. One is when the winter weather has frozen everything, ground and plants and fences and whatever, then a little bit of moisture comes through in a warm front, and that rain may be actually super cooled where it's almost to the point of freezing as it comes down, but when it lands on the frozen surfaces, it does give up its heat and it freezes. Another cause is when the objects are not necessarily completely below freezing yet, but the rain is coming down with slush and freezing ice crystals in it, and as those first drops land on those surfaces, they give up their heat and allow the water to freeze, and so then the remaining rainy, slushy stuff that comes down freezes. Now, if the ice is less than 1/4 inch thick, and this right now is only about 1/8 of an inch thick, if it's less than 1/4, then just leave it. There's very few plants that are going to have a problem with that little bit of ice. And if they do have a broken branch or a dead branch or something that's in the plant and it falls, that would have fallen anyway, probably in the next few weeks with spring coming and the winds, so don't worry about those. If it's ice that's 1/2 inch thick, then we're going to start losing small branches, and if it's over 1/2 inch and an inch, then we're going to start losing large branches and even having tree trunks split in half. Now, the 1/4 inch ice is a protection against even colder air. So if you've got cold front coming through after the rain, then these plants are going to be protected by the ice. The flower buds are going to be protected in the branches, so that's not a problem. Now, the 1/2 inch ice that is breaking those small branches might be something that if you see a branch that's leaning over, you might be able to prop it up or tie it in place if you're careful. You don't want to try to pull it back up because ice makes these plants brittle. The plant branch that would normally be flexible, when it's encased in ice, if the ice bends, then it snaps, and so then it breaks right through the branch. So if you have a leaning branch from that 1/2 inch ice, you don't want to try to prop it back up and put it into its original position. Once the ice melts, it'll go back up, but you don't want it to continue, so if you put some wood or something underneath it to keep it in place, that's fine. But don't try to pull it up. You can tie it in place if you're careful that you don't do anything where it snaps it. Now, the 1 inch ice, after you get past a 1/2 inch thick, there isn't anything you can do. You can try propping things up, but the weight of those branches that are leaning at that point is tremendous, and when they do break, they can smash whatever you put underneath to try to prop them up. And when you get to that heavy ice on plants, you're better off staying out of the way, because branches just snap off from great heights and bring down whole trees and bring down other branches. So you want to be really careful with thick ice like that. Now, wind can also be a big problem when you have ice. Even the thin layers of ice become a problem if there's a lot of wind, and so the wind really increases the damage from an ice storm. The most affected plants from ice are plants that were poorly maintained to begin with, that have lopsided structures, so that the more branches are on one side or the other because maybe it was pruned because it was close to a house, or there were two trees near each other and each one only has half of the crown, and so the lopsided shape can cause a problem because ice tends to come from one direction, and when it does, then it weights that side more heavily. Another problem plant are the multi-trunk plants. One side can get a lot of ice and the other side not, and that can cause it to spread and then crack. And especially on multi-trunk plants that have what's called included bark. This is where two trunks are growing and they get wider and wider until they touch. The bark touches, bark is dead stuff decays, and so as those two trunks grow bigger and bigger, the center in between them rots out. And in an ice storm, that hollow, rotten area on the inside causes the tree to just snap in half. So multi-trunk trees are the biggest problem in an ice storm because of that bad shape. Now, evergreens are another plant that you have to watch. If it's a Christmas tree shaped evergreen, the ice will bring the branches in a little closer, but then when the ice leaves, it'll spread back out again. So the Christmas tree shape is a great shape for evergreens, but a lot of evergreens are pruned into hedges, and so they have a flat top or flat sides, and if that area gets a lot of ice, it'll build up thickly on those areas, and it can cause branches to tip over and break. On deciduous trees, trees that have lots of small twigs like elms and some of the maples that have lots of little tiny fine branches can accumulate a lot of ice, and that can break. Trees like a ginkgo tree or a Kentucky coffee tree, something that doesn't have all those fine branches over the winter time, will last better in an ice storm. So that's all there is to an ice storm. If you have evergreens or trees that are starting to bend, you may want to prop them up. If you don't have a very thick layer of ice, just enjoy the beauty of the ice storm, especially if the sun comes out afterwards. It becomes a very beautiful environment. If you've got thick ice, then maybe you want to stay indoors until it starts to melt off. And this has been Jeff with the Green Review. Thanks for watching.